Hello there. This is another one of those really good UFO sightings. Um, it's probably not one of the best ones as well, I'll be honest. There's so many, isn't there? But this happened in 1977 in a small place called Marple in Cheshire in England. It was first spotted by children in a nursing home, and it was run by Mr. and Mrs. Simpson. And But there it goes. You'll like this one, hopefully. True story. It was 1977, 10:20, and the children in the nursing home saw something over the brow of the trees. There was a lake and up some brows of the trees, and you could see it just rising out, and they were looking at it, and so they went and shouted, Mrs. Simpson. Mr. Simpson was out at that time, and she looked at it for I think half an hour or so, to about, you know, 10:50, I think it was, something around that time. I can't quite remember. Some time anyway. And she observed it with the children on their own, and she described that it was giving off a yellowish light, but the yellow underneath it was angled as if it was scanning the floor. And so she thought, well, what is it? So she knew it wasn't a plane, and behind it, she could see it was all clear. There was nothing there. The stars, and she described it. It gave off. It was brighter than three stars, three brightest stars you can think of. This thing was brighter than it, and it sort of what I find the most interesting thing though. She described it. It elongated the shape. One minute it was like a cigar shape. Remember, this is 1977. And people wasn't really talking about changing shapes, and it was more it's a flying saucer or this and that. This is quite a rare one because she described it actually saw it change from a cigar shape to a saucer shape, and in between it was always changing continually. And I found that story immensely fascinating because when we think about the technology, we're yeah, we're going to medium and we're going to sort of that technology now, where it's quite a spooky, magical area, isn't it? And these things can lock into it, obviously, changing shape, you know. But anyway, it offered just above the tree line, and then she looked at it for a bit, and then it went below the tree line and stopped there. And she was there for, like I say, some time just staring at it. And then her husband came back with his youngest brother, and then they looked at it for about 20 minutes, and with his wife, I think some of the children as well. And then he obtained some binoculars, and they looked at binoculars, and they had an even better look. And then it changed to an long elongated shape with like lumps on each side of it. You think, well, what's going on here? And it was silver in colour then. Still kept the yellowish glow over underneath and round, but you could clearly see it was silver in colour, but it had peculiar lumps on the sides of it. Anyway, looked at that, like I say, some time, and then it began slowly to move just where there's a tree clearing and a little lake. So, and it was clearing closer then, so they had even better view of it with the binoculars, and they described it changed from yellowish light to an orangey light to a reddish light all underneath, but the angles of the light still angled out across the ground, and it remained there for quite some time anyway, and then it slowly drifted out until the lost view of it. Anyway, the lady, Mrs. Simpson, she looked at what she should do, did a bit of research instantly, and found there was a radio channel which just did a thing about UFOs. So she phoned it up, and Robotard, a UFO expert at them days, lucky enough, came round that evening, and he went round the fields and had a look. He couldn't see anything, But he says if it returns, take some photos if you can, but do it in a slow mode. I'm not a photographer, so I have no ideas. I just take a photo. Anyway, he never saw it, but they were adamant they all saw it and described it really well. And the same night at 10 p.m., just a few, 20 minutes earlier, when his wife, Mrs. Simpson, saw it, two teenagers saw something and they just described the same thing in Earlham. And we're looking over the Manchester Ships Canal, and we're looking over Flixton Estate, which is a huge estate. But only them saw it, which I find fascinating. I always find this unusual, where only certain people can see it. It can fly over millions of people, only a certain person sees it. Very peculiar, that is. Whether they were just switched on at that time and somehow they can block everybody else out. I feel that's what's happening. But anyway, but these saw it and they described exactly the same thing. It was elongated, and they felt it was changing shape, and they wasn't adamant, but yeah, and it was again yellowish to orange and bright red underneath, and it flew slowly across to where Marple, the witnesses saw it at the nursing home. So incredibly great witness sighting, and it went on for some time. I think altogether a couple hours, so it wasn't just a few minutes sighting. So brilliant, isn't it? But what is it, and what makes it change its shape? It's again, we're hearing stories now on YouTube and everything else now that I think we sussed this out some years ago, that they're using a phenomena of power. We talk about occultish and things, which obviously nobody likes, but it's got energy, and maybe this thing is using the same sort of energy. I'm not saying that it's occultish, but same sort of energy from somewhere we don't ascertain, we don't understand, and who knows? You know, it's like I think Matthew went in Matthew 21. I know it's a bit religious, but bear with me. He says, if you want it, yeah, and pray for it, think about you've got it, and then it will happen. Well, Matthew 21, most of the Bible, it got took out. You mostly see it's missing, but that's what it says. And quite often when you UFO abductions, they say, how do you move? I say, well, we think about it first, and when we go, it's just as it says in Matthew 21. I'm not trying to sell religion at all. It's just, it's very similar to what that is. It's the same ideology. It's the same thought pattern, and somehow that energy, whatever that is, locking into whatever we want to call it. I call it God. Somebody would call it something else. Also an energy, an entity, and they've entered it and use it somehow. But especially to be able to change shape, I've not come across one myself that can change shape. I'm pretty sure they do. We've heard that many times, but like I say, these saw it for 2 hours or so. But if you do check it out, it's not very popular. This maybe because there's so many around, didn't they? But I like it simply because of that bit. They never describe the shape. Sorry, the size of it, which unfortunately I would have liked to know the size. And I've never met any of these people, or they're probably all gone, unfortunately now. But I'd love to. And I've never been to that place called Marple. May have to check it out one day to have a little look. Yeah, I think it'd be gone like, but anyway. But and I hope you like the story. It's perfectly true. It's one of those where it's interesting. It might not be too exciting, but it's just another story with a UFO being perfectly sighted and something happening strange which you can't explain. And it's sort of story where people wouldn't make up. You wouldn't go and make up. And certainly people who've run in a nursing home for children, they just wouldn't risk the jobs and everything else to look silly. No. So I think it's a perfectly good story. Anyway, God bless. I hope you like the story. Thank you for looking. Bye.